Hey everyone, my name is Cole. As you all know, the DC Cinematic Universe has just been taken over by James Gunn, someone who I respect and have a lot of faith in to bring us faithful and, hopefully, great adaptations of some of the most beloved characters ever made. Upon this moment in history, I had to reflect on the past projects in the universe, specifically from one of my favorite directors of all time, Zack Snyder. Now, I know my liking of Snyder is already divisive as so many people despise him, but I truly believe he is an incredible director, person, and visionary who has brought some great projects to the industry. Say what you want about Snyder, but he is one of the most passionate and talented filmmakers today, and you cannot replicate that. He is also a massive inspiration to me in regards to his cinematography, and I always admire his passion. If you can like M. Night Shyamalan and his horrendous filmography, I can like the man behind Watchmen, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Man of Steel. Something I think everyone can agree on about Zack Snyder is that he is one of the greatest visual storytellers of all time. This man knows how to work his camera and give us emotional and understanding sequences with zero dialogue. It's quite impressive. Anyway, for this video, I'm going to be ranking every film in Snyder's filmography, after I chose to reflect on his DC projects and look at the history of this iconic and unique director. Let me know your rankings of Snyder's filmography, and like always, enjoy. Oh my god, this movie is such a fever dream. What is this? Don't let the cinematography of this film fool you. It is an absolute lie. Why is Snyder's early work such a fever dream? I am so flabbergasted by what I just watched. Sucker Punch is one of the worst films I've had the displeasure of witnessing. It's not the worst film I've ever seen, especially since I have no attachment to it whatsoever, but it's bad. Before I rant about the negatives, here are a few things I actually kind of liked about the film. Well, it was mainly just the action. Snyder has some terrific sequences with exquisite one-shot scenes, which created some incredible, immersive, and badass moments. Seriously, this film has some peak action sequences that carried the film. The performances were nothing special, not a lot to complain about in that aspect. It was cool to see a young Oscar Isaac, which I didn't even know he was in this film to begin with, and he gave a solid performance, despite the poor dialogue. God, I hate this movie. That's it. That's all I thought was good, if you can call it that. Now, for the bad. I don't know what this movie is. It's so strange, confusing, and weird. I guess it's some orphans put into prostitution in this mental asylum, and the main protagonist has intense visions and honestly badass dreams when she was forced to dance. I just don't understand what I am supposed to know or feel about this movie. The story is almost non-existent, in my eyes at least, and it's off-putting because the film drops you into the plot immediately and it feels as if nothing happens. The film is so 2000s that it's honestly hysterical. I knew I was in for a ride when I heard Sweet Dreams playing over a dark, gritty, and slow-motion scene in the introduction of the film. The music in this film was so insane because it was just 2000s emo songs. I couldn't help but laugh and feel that the songs both fit and were misplaced every time I heard one. Snyder is something else, man. God damn. His color grading almost made this film more uncomfortable as it was also set in a mental institution. I felt so violated watching this. God, it was such a nightmare. I'm so happy it's over. This movie is the closest thing that we have to a BioShock movie, and that's mainly just because one of the robots looked like it. You know what? This comparison's dumb. I'm gonna continue. Sucker Punch is original and hard to compare to anything. At least we have a film like this? Can't say I know what to exactly compare it to. At one point, it felt my heart stop when I checked to see how much time was left, and it said an hour and 17 minutes. I was just done. I wanted to wave my white flag and be over with and get on to the Owls of Ga'Hoole. I assume the film is about the sexualization and control of women, which worked in the 2000s, but it doesn't work today since women sexualize themselves and find it to be empowering. This is not the fault of Snyder, but it's interesting to see this theme age due to the increase of degeneracy in our modern society, or at least Western culture. The film just didn't handle any of these themes with empathy or grace, leading to it having absolutely zero effectiveness, for me at least. Overall, Sucker Punch is the epitome of 2000 cinema, and I honestly cannot stand it. It's pure cringe. It looks like a shitty music video for a 2000s metalcore band. I don't know what Snyder was thinking, but I am intrigued to learn more about the creation of this film and the why behind it, because it's honestly kind of hilarious to think that this film was released 2 years before Man of Steel. If you like this film, I'm happy for you. I think everyone should be able to find films that maybe are unpopular or not as common to be enjoyed and find them intriguing. And hopefully you learned something from it, but personally, this was not it for me. I really hate this movie. Next. Boy, am I gonna get some hate on this one. I don't see what you all see in this film. I know this is an unpopular opinion, and I may get some hate. Definitely gonna get some hate. But I dislike Dawn of the Dead. The movie is so painfully overrated from its horrendous pacing, uninteresting protagonist, and the godforsaken plot armor that's so used to progress the plot in 7 actual narrative. I hate it so much. I felt like the film was never going to end. Maybe this film was good for its time, but I think we have enough turn your brain off zombie films that are so dumb that it's supposed to be quiet and consume more product. The incoherent story is the true downfall of this film. It drags so badly and is so bland that I struggled to invest any bit of love into this film. Dawn of the Dead simply failed to engage me emotionally and intellectually. It's not the most complex film in the world. It was uninteresting and unappealing. Factors such as poor character development, weak storytelling, and predictable plot lines are major contributors to this. I don't know how many times I screamed at my TV saying, "What the hell? Kill him! Don't let it bite you! Close the door!" and so on. It's just a dumb, fun film that took itself too seriously that I struggled to have fun. I can only turn my brain off so much to the point where I have to start asking questions. Of course, this film was Zack Snyder's directorial debut, and nobody is perfect. But I cannot stand this film. It annoys me time and time again that this film is so highly praised when we have better zombie films like The Great Train to Busan, the best zombie film, and I'll fight anyone who thinks otherwise. Dawn of the Dead is a by-the-numbers zombie flick that I find unoriginal and, to put it lightly, bad. I can understand nostalgia, and this film definitely oozes that, and it was cool to see the origins of Zack Snyder a bit, and also see how far he's come from his directorial debut, especially in cinematography. There were some excellent shots in this, and you can see how it inspired his future work. I don't know, 2004 is a crazy time. Maybe this was the magnum opus of zombie cinema. I have no clue, but I just didn't find Zack Snyder's work here to be that great. Maybe it was the writing that brought it down, but yeah, this isn't it for me. I can't. I will say the best aspect, idea, everything about this film was Down the Sickness playing in the end credits scene. Oh my god, it was so hype. Yeah, you guys are gonna tear me apart, pun intended, for putting this movie above Dawn of the Dead. What more is there for me to say that hasn't already been said about this film? The use of blur is absolutely sickening, and I truly hate looking at this film. It is so painfully over the top and unnecessary. I hate it. Sometimes there are moments when you allow a director too much control, and this is one of those moments. It has over-the-top and unrealistic action, such as the car at the beginning of the film exploding in a head-on collision. Like, what the hell was that? Like, seriously, I don't know. Like, there's dumb fun, but that's just dumb. I can't. The dialogue and story are a bit of a mess, similar to Dawn of the Dead, and I can only suspend my disbelief so much to where it starts becoming irritating that this film takes itself so seriously, but had genuinely poor writing. For example, why are people living right next to the infected city? That makes no sense. Small but important stuff like that is baffling. Even Batista's character lets his daughter go into the infected zone with his team, putting them all at risk, not to mention the life of his daughter, his only family. There are just too many plot holes that make this film difficult to enjoy. I can only turn my brain off so much. In addition, the humor is very hit and miss in this film, mostly miss, which left me quite perplexed each time this film attempted a joke. Anyway, this film does have some highlights, such as a visually appealing and stylistic montage for the intro title card, and some of the action can be quite entertaining and well choreographed. Especially the third act, which is the best part of the film. I'm one of those people who loves Zack Snyder's use of slow motion, and it is used quite effectively for multiple sequences in the film. Also, the best wrestler turned actor, Dave Bautista, gave another great performance, and I am so obsessed with every performance he blesses us with. And I will say, I do love the concept of alpha zombies, since we don't often see these in zombie cinema. One of the many flaws of this film is the alpha zombies, unironically, and we are just expected to simply go with it because it isn't explained too well, which leaves more plot holes on why they don't just kill the queen or whatever. I'm just done trying to reason with this film. I love Zack Snyder, and I commend him for trying to do something different, but this was disappointing, which is a shame because I was looking forward to this film before its release. It's not terrible, not great, just boring. Hopefully the sequel to this film, Planet of the Dead, will be better, but I don't know, I don't really have much faith in Zack Snyder with his zombie cinema. Next! I gotta say, this is by far Zack Snyder's strangest entry in his filmography. It is weird and strangely dark for something that is meant to be a kid's film. I was not expecting it. Snyder tried to make a hybrid of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and a children's novel into a movie. It's absolutely hilarious. The Azal Ghul works hard to build lore, characters, and its world. I gotta say, I respect it and kind of admire it, but it's so off-putting because it almost doesn't fit the style of the film with its tone. I can't believe I watched a family of owls become torn apart, brothers divided, in an epic and intense journey of a young owling as he quests to avenge his family and friends. This film is so overwhelming, I do not know what to feel. Some pacing issues make the film drag pretty hard, especially in the second act. The characters are fleshed out fairly well and their motivations are interesting, and I will say, the constant exposition makes me feel like the film is telling me the story instead of actually showing me it and actively progressing it effectively. I'm not saying the entire film is like this, but there are glimpses here and there of this film that makes it feel quite stagnant. The tone of the movie, to an extent, brought a disconnect between me and what I was watching. I kept sitting back and telling myself that there is no way that this film is this serious and dark. The biggest gripe was that the ending failed to capitalize on the primary journey of the film between the two brother owls. I'm not saying the names because this review is already just too much for me, and the emotion wasn't capitalized or focused on despite having such a dramatic build-up to that moment. Not to mention the epilogue of the film that treated what happened as a victory, yet it was a massive loss for the protagonist. It's so strange and I don't know what else to say in regards to this entire fever dream of a film. As of now, my current rating on Letterboxd for this film is 3 out of 5. It probably would have been at 3.5 out of 5 if the film capitalized on the fact that the protagonist lost his brother at the end of the film, and there was almost zero emotion or acknowledgement of that death. That was a huge part of why he was trying to go back and not just protect his family or save others, but to save his brother. And the reason I mentioned Star Wars earlier in this was because I felt like this film was trying to give us almost an Anakin and Obi-Wan vibe, where the brother who, I guess, went to the dark side turned against his family and the protagonist. And you'd think that there would have been a heavier emphasis on that death, since they literally killed off his brother in the end of the film, but it was almost not acknowledged, and I felt that to be quite disappointing as I was somewhat invested in the overall story. I can't believe how serious Snyder took the cinematography in this film. The CGI is exceptional and still holds up. It is all absolutely stunning and mesmerizing to look at, and I can't believe I'm saying this about Legends of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole. This film is bizarre, and I still don't know what to feel after watching it, but it'll always be a film I'll look back on with great respect. We never have had a film like this. Yes, we've had darker animated films for kids, but this is on a different level, and I appreciate the hell out of it. This is where we start entering the best of Snyder's filmography. I like to think of 300 as Zack Snyder's most iconic film. A mid-2000s epic about Frank Miller's graphic novel 300 that is loosely based on some high-testosterone Spartans fighting against the Persian army. 300 is the first film on this list that I genuinely believe is great. Is it a bit simple and straightforward? You bet. But simple can be good. Not everything needs to be an ultra-complex and hyper-complicated film that reshapes the world. Sometimes you need to watch some Spartans go annihilate an army in some dark and slow-motion action sequences with an exceptional score by Tyler Bates. By the way, I was looking through the cast list at the stunt department, and I saw Chad Stahelski in the crew. You may know him from, well, a few films he directed, known as the John Wick franchise. It's so cool to learn the origin of some of the most exciting filmmakers to date. Also, I would love to see Stahelski direct a Batman film. Make it happen. 300 is an astonishing film to look at, like most Snyder films, pulled right out of a painting. That gorgeous cinematography perfectly complements the elegant action sequences that reside in the film. Personally, this is my favorite performance from Gerard Butler, who, for some reason, chooses the worst scripts 99% of the time. He is epic, badass, and raises the testosterone of each film he is in. It's not the most narratively complex film, but I find that simplistic nature comforting and almost nuanced since it is so straightforward. Watching this band of brothers walk towards their death for their country and their loved ones is so inspiring and masculine. I don't know a lot about the historical accuracy of this film to the actual events, but I am just here for the ride. This film thrives with its iconic one-liners and action. I still remember hearing, "This is Sparta!" for the first time, and that well-timed slow motion and grand score. It was so cool. Not to mention one of my favorite action sequences of all time in the third act, where Snyder utilizes slow motion to make the raw intensity of the kills hit even harder with the amount of control he had over the scene. Zack Snyder directed the hell out of this film, and it'll always be captivating to me. When Snyder creates coherent stories, his films are good, unlike some of the first few entries on this list. This film doesn't reach the height I believe it could have achieved if it had a little more narrative depth, but the emotion was there, and I always feel affected by the third act. Overall, I love 300. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. What a misunderstood film that I still have mixed feelings about. Batman's killing is still terrible. Not just the killing, but how he absolutely massacres dozens of people. It will never not be off-putting. Though, I will say, the famous warehouse scene is still the greatest Batman fight scene in cinematic history, and I pray Matt Reeves finds a way to top it. I am so tired of short, 1 minute or less fight scenes. Give me 5-minute, well-shot and choreographed fight scenes like BVS. Please, thank you. Honestly, the only right way to watch this film is the Ultimate Edition, which is what Snyder wanted, but like many of his films, the studio wanted to cut it to the bone. As always, the parts they cut were essential to the story, plot, and characters. So much has been said about this film, and I was a bit unsure of what else to add, but only to defend this film at all costs. The film dives into complex moral questions and explores the consequences of heroes' actions. It raises questions about power, accountability, and the nature of heroism, which can engage viewers who appreciate thought-provoking storytelling like myself. Jesse Eisenberg is an excellent catalyst and presence in the film with his dialogue as Lex Luthor. His take on the character is a perfect modern version that is refreshing and kind of a shame we won't ever see him again. Damn you, WB! Batfleck is still the best Batman and Bruce Wayne, if only he had better writing, because he is copy and paste from the comics and it depresses me more and more each day. Why is life like this? I love the dark and mature appearance of Snyder films, and BVS only increases that love. There is nothing cooler than watching the two most iconic superheroes of all time duke it out in a gritty and dark environment as the tension builds to a dramatic climax and explosive third act. I do feel like Doomsday was a bit rushed though, but it was still cool to watch nonetheless. Now, no one can talk about BVS without discussing the Martha scene. The scene aims to create an emotional connection between Batman and Superman by revealing their shared humanity. The realization that both characters have mothers named Martha evokes a strong emotional response, especially as Batman realizes that Superman is not just a faceless alien, but someone with a personal life and loved ones, like he once had and still does with Alfred. The scene serves as a turning point for Batman's character arc. In that moment, Batman sees himself reflected in Superman's humanity, which leads him to question his blind rage and reconsider his actions. Would the scene have had a stronger impact and more profound impact if Batman did not kill, but instead was almost pushed to break his one rule by killing the Man of Steel? 100%. Does it still work for me? Also 100%. To each their own. I honestly believe people will complain about anything and everything Snyder does because people love to hate him. Once again, Batman mass murdering criminals is still wrong. I'm still very angry at Snyder for doing this. Overall, I do love Batman vs. Superman and believe it is very misunderstood. If you do choose to rewatch it, it can only be the ultimate cut that isn't plagued by studio interference. That's all I got in regards to this film. This is definitely one of the best superhero movies of all time. I recently watched this film for my first time, and I have to say it is one of the best comic book films I have ever watched. First off, this may be Snyder's best film in regards to cinematography. Every scene is art and delicately crafted to express unbelievable emotion and intimate interactions. Snyder is truly the king of visual storytelling. This film has the best performances in any Snyder film, period. The most exceptional performance is hands down Jackie Haley, who was phenomenal as Rorschach. He led this film with authority, and every time I heard that badass voice, I got goosebumps. His one-liners and screen presence left me staying up from my seat glued to the screen. I was mesmerized by every word and movement this character said and made. What a character, and from what I heard, he was accurately and respectfully portrayed in the graphic novel to this film. I couldn't be happier with every member of this cast. Jeffrey Dean Morgan was another actor who killed it, even with his limited screen time. Of course, I have to give a nod to Patrick Wilson, who is an actor I have a ton of respect for, and he put in a great performance as well. In regards to the story, there was so much nuance that left me with a sense of refreshment. I can't imagine how rejuvenating this film was back in 2009, in a time when Marvel films were on the rise. It is emotional, absolutely epic, especially with the action sequences that we have. The characters are developed flawlessly. The performances are great. It's a stunning looking film. I love everything about this movie. This movie is becoming such an important part of my superhero experience right now. I am fascinated with every aspect and being of this film. So I've only watched the original cut of this film, the theatrical version, which I heard once again studio interference cut so much out because they want a short movie and they can't just accept everything, which is kind of funny now because the new trend is to have 3-hour movies. I hate cinema and just Hollywood right now. Oh my god. But anyway, I heard the ultimate cut is even better and has even more character development, so I'm definitely going to try and watch that sometime in the near future. This film honestly ages like wine because it is even better considering the fall of the superhero genre today. An aspect that I felt so moved by in Watchmen was how broken and jaded every character is. They weren't born bad, but were instead molded and formed by the world, by society, into what they are now. We watch as the comedian is deranged and committing war crimes, but also has intense PTSD, which only started due to the war that we as humans began. Watching Rorschach grow up in a broken home that led to his erratic behavior, which was only throttled by what he was witnessing in his life of crime fighting. Dr. Manhattan had one of the most tragic origin stories, which led him to become so distant from society that his mind withered away into this new consciousness that struggles to find empathy and, the most important emotion of all, love. Snyder didn't make broken characters to break them more, but instead crafted these characters from their brokenness into stronger people. Silk Spectre found out that she was the daughter of the comedian who assaulted her mother. This led her to become heartbroken, torn apart, but Dr. Manhattan tells her that, despite her origin, she was the outcome. She is the hope and light that was found in such a tragic situation. He found empathy and love. A being who knows past, present, and future stands upon this woman and says her mere existence is the most beautiful and powerful thing he has ever seen. This is love and how to develop characters. Zack, you king. This is why I love Zack Snyder. Say all you want, but this man makes good and powerful films, and it's a shame everyone becomes a critic the second they see his name. If this isn't the greatest superhero film ever made, I don't know what is. Zack Snyder's Justice League is a 4-hour-long director's cut of the 2017 film Justice League, which was completed by Joss Whedon after Snyder stepped down from the project due to a family tragedy. The Snyder Cut, as it's often called, was released in 2021 after years of fans campaigning for its release. Warner Brothers told fans for years that the film did not exist. A billion-dollar studio kept telling fans that this cut did not exist, making them out and even calling them crazy and depicting them as lunatics. Snyder and those who worked on the film began teasing more than what WB was preaching. After years of Snyder releasing stills, storyboards, and details about his cut, WB announced they would allow Snyder to release the completed cut of his film, which has always existed. Zack Snyder's Justice League brings something that I always wish more superhero films would share, and that something is hope. Superman is often referred to as the Man of Steel or the Man of Tomorrow. He represents the best of humanity and serves as a symbol of hope, justice, and morality. His optimistic and altruistic nature inspires people to be their best selves and strive for a better tomorrow. I believe Snyder's vision for Superman is perfect and captures the authenticity of the character. This is only brightened by Snyder's gorgeous cinematography that truly makes him feel larger than life. In regards to filmmaking, Snyder finds, once again, an incredible way to tell the story and convey his message. His cinematography can create tension, suspense, and drama through camera angles, editing, and visual effects. Cinematography is the visual language of a film. It is so perfectly used in all Snyder's work, but especially in this film. It evokes feelings of awe, wonder, and empathy, making the audience feel connected to the characters and their experiences. This is truly one of the most visually stunning films ever made. Nothing is better than the way Snyder uses the camera. Who am I to forget the perfect score from Tom Honkerboard, who created one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, At the Speed of Force. This is only complemented by what I believe to be the greatest scene in a superhero film of all time, The Flash reverses time. If you have watched the film, you are well aware of the importance of the scene, not just for the story, but also for the character of the Flash. With that beautiful score, along with Barry speaking to his father while saving the world from damnation, brings nothing but pure emotion out of me every time I see it. This entire film is a roller coaster of emotions. It's such a comfort movie for me. Seeing my childhood superheroes like Batman and Superman work together to fight Darkseid is likely never happening again, and I am grateful we have this art to satisfy that desire. They give Affleck's Batman, Cyborg, and The Flash true justice, unlike what Joss Whedon did with his disaster of a cut. Wonder Woman is best utilized under Snyder as well. He understands the character and how truly badass she is. When given the time, Snyder developed each character thoroughly and flawlessly. The fact that he made Cyborg one of the most important characters of the film, with a compelling backstory and character arc, is a masterclass in character development. I adore how Snyder managed this. All I have is praise for most of this film. My only nitpicks of the film are some of the dialogue can feel out of place, but is not a deal breaker. I love Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, but sometimes he uses slow motion a bit too frequently, and it can take you out of the immersive atmosphere he creates. An aspect of slow motion in Snyder's style that nobody likes to acknowledge is that he is taking risks with his filmmaking. Marvel films all look like CGI and generic monstrosities, whereas Snyder's films look like art paintings every single time you pause them. It is truly special and unique. Zack Snyder's Justice League is undeniably beautiful and passionate, but what better way to express this than Bruce Wayne telling Alfred, in regards to if Superman will show up to help fight, "Faith, Alfred. Faith. This is dreaming. This is faith. This is hope. We dream and hope for a better tomorrow, but we will never know if tomorrow will come. A man had a vision. A studio tried to stop that vision from coming to light. This was a man's dream, a passionate and important dream. This is one of the most historic events in the history of cinema, and is, to my opinion, one of the greatest superhero films ever made." Unpopular opinion: Man of Steel is the greatest superhero origin film of all time and one of the best superhero films ever made. Plain and simple. The acting, story, score, and the action. Oh my god, the action. It's all perfect and well crafted to have so much genuine care and passion. In my eyes, Zack understood this modern day Superman and excelled at it. The direction of Man of Steel is incredible, the dialogue is emotionally deep and is only elevated by the amazing supporting cast with Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, my favorite actress, and Michael Shannon giving an Oscar-worthy performance as General Zod. The story is so emotionally deep, focusing on Superman choosing to protect a world that isn't ready for him, but ultimately doing what is right. He goes through so much in this film, yearning for a place where he belongs, fighting for his meaning in the world, and having to fight his own kind to protect humanity. There's one line in the film that tells you everything you need to know about this movie. Clark says to John Kent, his father, "Can I just keep pretending to be your son?" Followed by an immediate response from John saying, "You are my son." The fact that anyone could ever complain about this film not being about hope and justice, it's truly beyond me. I can't believe how people will go give Marvel films 4 stars but give Man of Steel an average of 3 stars on Letterboxd. I really wish more people would go give this film a second chance again, because it is incredible. Now, as my number 1 on the list, I have to call out and expose all the stupid accusations people throw at this film. People always complain that Superman didn't try to move General Zod to a less populated location, as if they didn't pay attention to the story where Zod is a seasoned war general who is more experienced and has an equal power level to Superman. Zod is not the tropey villain who gets bitched by the protagonist, but instead levels the playing field. Hell, I'm so inclined to state that General Zod is one of the best superhero villains of all time. He had compelling motivations as he wanted to preserve his race, and he was in such incredible anger and confusion as he watched his kind, Superman, turn against him to defend a civilization that, to Zod, was inferior. The stakes were so incredibly high in this film, and it's absolutely amazing to experience every single time. Superman wanted to defend people he barely knew but understood that they were innocent and that there was good in them, good in the human race. The hate for Man of Steel will never be understood by me. Most of the hate is from people who haven't watched the film since 2013 and like to rally with the loud minority about their opinions on this film. Snyder's take on Superman is comic accurate and updated to a realistic and modern take on the character. You truly believe, in a modern day scenario with cell phones and media outlets, with everyone watching you and having an opinion, that Superman would not be somewhat affected by those so very loud feelings towards him? This Superman is real, authentic, and a take on the character we needed. He was helpful, he was strong, and he sacrificed everything. By far the dumbest argument that persuaded so many people's feelings about this film was the concept of Superman killing. Of course, normies are aware that Batman doesn't kill, but I guess they stayed in their echo chamber and believed Superman doesn't kill because everyone else said so. This is far from the truth. Superman does kill, but only when necessary. Superman will take every step possible to avoid killing, which in Man of Steel, he most absolutely did. Almost to a fault because he did not want to kill Zod, who is one of the last of Krypton. Superman kills when there is no other choice, when the necessity calls for it, which is what he soon realized. People often talk poorly about the neck snap scene at the end of the film and say some bullshit like, "Oh, he could have turned his head up." Okay, yeah, you're just not realizing that in the entire film, Superman did everything to avoid killing Zod. This moment was a climax where he realized that Zod will not stop. He must kill. He has to. Man of Steel is far more nuanced than people want to believe, and I implore every person who is watching to go try this film again, ignore the critics and others who are angry that this Superman wasn't saving cats from trees and helping old ladies cross the streets. Sorry, but that's simply not entertaining or compelling from a narrative standpoint. The world was not ready for Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill's masterpiece. Man of Steel is the most underrated superhero movie ever made. The film dominates the genre in action by miles, as well as an astonishing score by Hans Zimmer to complement every scene. Probably one of Zimmer's best scores in general. Man of Steel has a powerful and compelling effect on my life and in my heart. I was a diehard Superman fan growing up, and I didn't watch this when it was first released. Something is so special and beautiful about this film. Maybe it is watching Superman's first flight with Hans Zimmer playing in the background as we watch the Man of Steel roam the skies. Maybe it's watching Superman defend his mother from Zod, and in fighting Zod, he looks out for all of the people in the area, putting his own life at risk numerous times. Maybe it's that selflessness that is so beautifully appealing. Maybe, when I look at Superman, I see me. I see someone who didn't have a perfect upbringing, who didn't know his place in the world, but he had some amazing parents, which in my case, an amazing mom. Superman had hope, and that's a word that will always be with me, forever. If you have not watched this film recently, I highly encourage you to go experience it again. Well, that is all I got for Zack Snyder's filmography. That was quite an adventure for me, but one that reminded me of how much I adore this creative and talented director. I love the man that created Man of Steel, 300, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, Watchmen, and so on. If you like this video, go ahead and help me out by liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want more videos like this, please let me know by commenting below. And also, I will be dropping this entire ranking on Letterboxd if you want to just have a physical representation of it. I don't know. And you can also follow me when you go to my Letterboxd while you're at it. But overall, I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.